Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is Irit Ezips from CSM Practice, the customer success strategy consulting firm. And today I'm going to talk about a topic that not every company is really familiar with this term. It's called customer story time. What is it? We only know story time from our bedtime stories, but can we actually borrow that term into our day-to-day business? And so I have the one and only Guy Rahamim, who, by the way, for those of you who don't remember, he actually won the runner-up second award towards Customer Success Rising Star, which really means that he started becoming a CSM just a couple of years ago or so, and yet achieved tremendous results that afforded him this amazing awards for EMEA 2022. Guy, thanks and welcome back to the channel.
Hello, Iri. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
Stay tuned because we're going to share what is customer story time. Why is it important to start incorporating it to your team's work, to your team, some of the things that you do with customers on an ongoing basis, how to do it right, what are the things to avoid, and how did Linear B, which is the company where Guy is working at, started doing it, and what happened since then? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us and thanks for coming back. Guy, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you must be working like 50 hours a week or at least.
Yeah, it can get busy. It can get busy sometimes, but always happy to talk to you.
Thank you. Yeah, because you work at a scale up and everything is like happening. Like the plane is built as you fly it.
Yeah, totally. Like startup time, I think equals like dog year. It's 1 year, it's 7 dogs years. I think startup time, it's like kind of like behaves the same. Like I'm just wrapping up 1 year in Linear B, and yeah, that's
like 5. Yeah, exactly. But it's really interesting that, albeit the fact that you work at a startup scale up, high growth, changes and things that you need to build for the team, for customers, and being understaffed probably, you still find time to do stuff outside of your traditional role, which is one of the reasons you won the award. And so one of the things that you do is that besides taking care of your dog, you have a very cute dog.
This is also important.
This is very important. I just want to show the dog. He's so cute. What does it have around his neck? Is that flowers?
This is Tofi. She's our husky, and she was like on an event with my girlfriend for work. And it was like, I think Thai New Year. They were like giving away this. So like Tofi also decided she wants one. So she also got one.
So cute. And then you also have time to create memes.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Like what on earth? Like, is that like customer success memes?
Yeah. So it's like, it started off when I was a student. Like I like to create memes to be able like to help the others relax. And sometimes it can be like what frustrating and also hard, like being a student. And like, I really liked it and everyone seems to react to it. And I love also sharing like some posts I'm writing on LinkedIn. So usually it's like really relatable because it addresses like a problem or an issue that like people can relate to. And then you can also tell a message, like provide a message or like ask others for best advice.
So tell me about customer story time specifically. Like when was the first time you had one? Before we explain what it is, was like, when did you start doing those? Like a year and a half ago?
So it started like around a year ago, when I joined the Linear B. So I think part of our day-to-day job is bringing the voice of the customer and sharing stories. It helps marketing to bring in more leads. It helps sales to convert these leads into customers and also help us to exchange and share knowledge. It's also a product to understand how customers are using the product. So it started actually with the snippets in Slack. So we have like a Slack channel for customer success. So we used to write like snippets. Hey, I was on like a really interesting call today. This is what I heard. This is how they're using. And we saw it got like some nice engagement. People were like asking questions. So we started to have like a bi-weekly ceremony with the entire go-to-market team, but also, of course, R&D are welcome as well. And we shared stories from our perspective. How do we think customers are using the product? What do we see trends in metrics, like more popular feature, less popular feature, how we can improve? And then I started to think, okay, we tell our side of the story. And I think very similar, it met me with like customer sentiment. So we talk about customer sentiment. So we know to say how do we think the customer is feeling towards us, but we want to hear the customer telling us and also telling and sharing their story to the company. So I think in the last couple of months, what we started to do was my initiative, start bringing customers to meet the entire company. And that gave us like a lot of great deal of engagement and a really amazing platform to share stories.
Okay, so initially you had, I like how you called it a ceremony, but I bet it was like a half-hour call or whatever with your go-to-market strategy and R&D and such, and everybody shared from their own perspective what they heard or experienced customer, like, and just share from their own perspective. And then you thought, well, what if we brought the customer to tell it and first agree? Who did you invite? Which customer did you pick to be the first? Was it your initiative, by the way? And
yes.
So who did you decide to invite?
So you tend to bring the customers that you have a better relationships with. So it's kind of like, this is an ask on our behalf. It's best that you have like a good relationship with the customer and also that they realize the ROI that Linear B provides them. We had few sessions prior to that, non-related to customer story time, but we identified a really interesting use case we learned about their engineering process. We identified a specific feature that can help with this specific bottleneck, and then we act upon it. So it was amazing. There was a call to action. I met also, it was a team lead, an engineering team lead. I met also with the team after, and based out of that, just felt really natural. This was like a story I wanted to share. Like, these are the stories that we need to highlight. That was definitely like my first pick for customer story time.
So I think that if somebody wanted to start story time with customers for their internal purposes, I think the advice you're giving is not only pick a customer that you have a good relationship with, but a customer that has a good story. Maybe if you recently had a big moment of value delivered to your customer, a cool use case you just completed, and they can talk about it fresh right off the oven with your team with some excitement. I think that is very uplifting internally to understand the new use case or an existing in like the success, but also talk about, what could have been handled better. And so that was your pick. Who from the customer did you choose to invite? Was it the technical admin, the business lead? Who do you invite?
Yeah, usually like I target one person per call. We have different personas. Linear B helps leaders, engineering leaders like C-level, like VP, CTO.
The executive sponsor, the business lead, the technical lead or super user. Yeah. Everybody has those, right?
Yes. So the champion.
The champion.
I like to bring the champion, and it varies depending on the size of the customer, but I brought my champion, which is a team lead at my customer. Actually, what was helpful during the process is preparing. So it's not just come and talk about Linear B. So we want to have that structured. So before the session, what we did, it can be async or have like a quick sync for 15 minutes, just like, hey, this is the questions I'm going to ask you. So no surprises. Like, I don't want to put, obviously, my customer, like my champion on the spot. These are the questions we're going to ask. It's like, it can be very basic. Please introduce yourself. How long have you been using Linear B? What was your first experience? Tell us about recent work we did around that specific feature. And always it's, what would you like to improve? Because I think this is a big part of me pitching the customer story time, because I ask my customer to come for 30 minutes, give us from their time. And part of me pitching it, it's like, hey, we're going to have like the CEO on the call.
Your CEO.
Yes, my CEO, the co-founders, the VP of engineering, VP of product. They will listen on this type of call, and this can help and push and maybe share like both customers' success use cases, but also pain points and how can we improve as a company and as a product.
So you send out the questions in advance. You have some questions, it seems like background questions, and then some questions related to that specific use case, and then some questions that are just general, how can we improve? So you send them the questions, and then you also meet with them for like 15, 30 minutes to just prep. And then you pitch it probably in an earlier meeting to just get them to say yes. Once they say yes, then you prepare them, right?
Yeah, definitely. You need to prepare in advance. So you need to be cognitive of course, your customer like a schedule and time. So usually like I start the process around 1 month before I need to bring a customer. So I have like a short list of customers that might have like interesting stories. And I think they will be willing to share. I pitch it. And based on one customer, I only need one to say yes. Then I'm like, I have 1 month ahead, prepare myself. And this is like, I think the business can gain so much from that. And I also believe in not only bringing like success stories, but also customers that are more like maybe struggling or have pain points. And I think that gives an immense feedback and value to the business, just like hearing these stories firsthand out of the customer.
Firsthand. Exactly. That's really the power of it. Okay. So we talked about how you pitch it to a customer, but you actually have a pipeline, like a list of candidates.
Yes.
How do you qualify which one of them is worthwhile bringing to your team? Because it's not just the customer's time, it's actually your CEO's time, your executive. And if you're in a larger company, it's going to be like a bunch of people attending on your end. So it needs to be a win-win situation. How do you qualify which customers might be a good candidate?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think from our experience, and we got to a point where now we're going to do a poll on how to improve. We're going to send a survey to the entire company and going to ask them like, how often do you attend? What type of personas you would like to see? You would like to see C-level, you would like to see team leads, you would like to see developers. What type of insights you've gained from that? What type of features you want us to focus? How can we improve? So I think if I can give like a suggestion to someone that wants to do it up ahead, try to ask these questions around at the beginning before starting that, and then understanding what the business cares about, and then follow through. So usually like the qualification is usually around like new features, I think are more interesting because we have less data on a new feature or like beta features or stuff around that. I need to make sure that the customer is like, it's a good speaker, someone that can be articulate, can share the stories, can give examples, that we have like a good cadence, that like not a lot of stuff have changed since the last time we met, because it is a startup, like product is keep on going forward. UI can change, like different functionalities can change. So I think this would be my main criteria of qualifying.
So it's not just the story and whether the account had a recent interesting use case, but most likely you're going to prioritize those who recently started using new features. And then of those, you'll try to pick out somebody, a persona that it might be interesting for R&D, but also is an eloquent speaker that you can have this interesting back and forth with.
Yeah, I think also moving forward with the guests that are coming to customer story time, this is a great opportunity. We have a podcast, we have like webinars, we have events. So coming to these events, I can give something back. So I say, okay, you invest the time, like everyone here enjoyed what you had to say. You want to come and speak on an event and get a great exposure. We have an event with the VP of engineering from Netflix, from Twitter, from like American big names. Be on a list with this type of people. This is also great to build your brand, to promote your company. So it's kind of like a partnership, I think, in the end. So you're able also to give back after doing so. And I think this is a big part of what we're doing. It's like a win-win situation all around.
Definitely. So that's one way to thank them for their time, is actually finding other ways to benefit either their own personal career advancement by offering a platform to promote their personal brand as well as their company's brand. Is there anything else you do after their session with your team?
Yes. So usually we gather a lot of feedback around that. We get ideas for new features or new ways of using the product that we might not were aware of. So
is there somebody taking notes during the call?
Yeah. So usually the calls are being recorded for internal use and being transcribed. So yeah, we have notes. We also have, I think the structure of the session is like, it's in half an hour. First 20 minutes is for me or other CSM interviewing our guest speaker. And the last 10 minutes are open for questions.
Q&A.
So anyone can step in and ask questions they're interested to hear. It could be like someone from R&D, someone from product, someone from marketing, even one of the co-founders. So it also gives, I think, internal stakeholders that are spending less time customer facing to ask this question, the questions that are interested to know. So I think that would be like a good ratio of 2/3, 1/3 that you are conducting the session itself. And then Q&A, we also have a moderator. It always helps to take questions from the chat and just piling them up and then just asking the questions. This would be like a good structure, a good place.
Yeah, that's a good structure for the session. So back to my question though, what do you do after the session? Do you send them a thank you note? What's common? Like what has really resonated with your customers? That's the only reason I ask, because some people, they like to send a meme.
Yeah, so usually it's a thank you note. Appreciate the time spent. I would also share the feedback I got from my peers. If the co-founders had something interesting to say, marketing, products, like, hey, we want to have you on future podcast, a webinar event or something, we would be happy to keep in touch. This is also great to multi-thread and to deep the relationship that you already have. So when other stakeholders meet them and can communicate with them, so this is great. Usually the customers are having fun. This is, I think, something we didn't mention. We only talk about what we gain, but usually they really enjoy that. It's like talking in front of 50 people, sharing their stories, being asked questions, being the center of attention. So usually they tell me, hey, Guy, I had like a great time. Thank you for having me. And this is also great, getting this reinforcement when after reaching out and saying thank you very much for time spent, they're saying, I enjoyed it. It was my pleasure.
Guy, I'm going to challenge you because, a lot of companies, they gather feedback from customers. And I think this is a very awesome way to capture the voice of the customer. That's why I wanted to bring it up to the show. And one of the things that I hear, I'm not saying that this is in your case, I kind of want to hear your thoughts, but a lot of companies that I work with, they say, yeah, we capture feedback or we do a postmortem after every onboarding phase. And we say what worked well and what didn't. And then nobody really takes on those insights and actually is accountable for addressing them and making a change. So the first time it happens, no big deal. But after a while, you got to ask yourself, okay, so I'm going to come to this meeting, I'm going to hear all these things, but nothing's going to change. And people get a little bit deflated about even, like taking the time to listen or sending a survey or bringing a client in. What do you think about that? And what does your company kind of solve for that?
Yeah, so preparing the customer, it's like, hey, tell us what you want to improve. It's quite obvious we're going to get like all aboard the feature request train. Usually we try to capture at least one main use case or pain point that we've heard. We try to understand if it relates to what we are hearing from other customers in different channels. And what I usually do is we're going to have a plan. We want to do another deeper dive with my product team and try to design a solution or try to find a workaround or have you as a design partner for a new feature that would answer your use case. So this is some of the takeaways depending on what we hear on the call itself, but this is definitely helpful doing that after the call.
Yeah, because if there's no accountability for who's to say, what were the things that the customer suggested doing and of which, what are we going to do about it, if anything, and then like actually create sort of like a project plan or even say out of this meeting, this was the impact for the company. And I think you're kind of doing it with the feedback that you capture and send back to the customer. You're saying, hey, this is what we've heard. This is the feedback we got internally, and this is what's probably going to happen, right?
Yeah. So I think also it's worth mentioning that usually I'm rarely surprised that they tell me something I do not know already about what they would like to improve. If I'm surprised on a call, it means like I wasn't prepping.
Well, because you're the CSM, but the R&D should be maybe sometimes surprised, or the CEO might not know because they don't really react or interact with customers all the time.
Yeah, usually I give like a bit of background on what customers are coming, what are the use case that we are promoting it like internally beforehand. So we are going to focus on projects feature. And we know customer have like an outstanding feature request on this and this specific item. So it would be like, hey, Irit, now you are my customer. Irit, you remember we were talking about like this specific functionality. Can you elaborate more in your own words what you would like to see there? Everybody knows that this is coming. It shouldn't be a surprise. And usually like it's type of an enforcement on what we already hear, but I can capture a feature request and put it in my own words in Jira, but still it's not the same when you hear like someone that is sharing where they would like to improve. I love your product. I just want it to be like more suitable for my specific use.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a lot of fun for a customer to be able to share it with the people who make the decision whether or not to do it and clearly communicate what it means to them versus just seeing it on a piece of paper. Okay, so what I'm hearing is those customer stories, the main impact you're getting out of it is the influence on the product roadmap in a customer-centric manner.
Yeah, this is correct. Also, marketing is gaining from that because we often get quotes. Obviously, we ask for permissions for these quotes, but we also get some powerful quotes that can become like testimonials and case studies with the customers. Sales learn how customers use the product that they are selling over time, and then they can share from their experience and best practice. Now we are here. By the time you will get to the CSM hands, you will get there. We know that. We've seen customers doing that. This is how they did it. Trust me, I know I'm talking from experience. I'm going to introduce you to Guy that is going to do that for you. So it's kind of like building credibility across the organization. We're aligning on the same goals that customers might have like different goals to be able to consider themselves successful using Linear B. Often you hear very similar pain points or problems because it's engineering. And it's like I created memes for CSMs because all of us understand like, QBRs, renewals, churn, and so on and so forth. For engineering, it would be like, I need to deliver what I was promised. I need to know how I can get to a higher planning accuracy, like the say-do ratio. How will I be able to deliver better with what I have? So these are usually questions and the pain points we try to answer with Linear B. So yeah, this is like a great deal of help.
I think it's superb. I think like connecting conversations with customers directly to R&D is amazing. And it sounds like the real opportunity here is to expand the audience. How many people do you have participating in these meetings usually? Is it like 10, 20 or the entire company is invited?
Yeah, so the entire company is invited. Usually it's like around like 40, 50 people.
Wow, that end up attending.
So,
that's awesome. Yeah, so definitely the salespeople are invited so that they can hear firsthand what are customers talking about, what are they feeling, what do they need.
Yeah, it's also like think that customer, as a salesperson, you sold Linear B for this customer. So you get to hear them in the specific session, or the product just created and released a feature that helped them. And they are like, hey, like we are using this. This is helpful for us. Or the R&D.
Closure.
But also we are meeting the customers on conferences and customer-facing events. So like the first customer I had invited to customer story time. So when I visited London, we met for lunch. So that was like a really good segue because we were already best friend and we were like chatting, and he came to talk with Linear B and like everything. So the relationship just becomes deeper. And this is also something that I'm gaining. It's like deepen the relationship with my champion.
So definitely. So it's not just to a voice of a customer exercise. It's really an exercise in increasing customer engagement and deepening the relationship. And if you have a relationship score, it could increase that. And guys, if you don't know what a relationship score is, please search my YouTube channel. There's a relationship score video that I've done with Ziv Peled a while back. You should totally watch it. Guy, thank you so much for bringing this to everyone's attention and to our channel. I think it was such a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for having me. I had a pleasure, as always, Irit.
Yeah, I learned a lot. So thank you so much. And if everybody agrees with me, this was an awesome session. You learned something new, put it in the comments below, like this video, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. I'll see you guys at the next video.